What is going on, my fellow nerds? Operator Otter here. I hope that your Season 8 journey is going well. And today, for you Lightning Spear Sorcs, we are going to be discussing how to increase your damage against bosses by a factor of 1200%. That is not a joke. I am literally going to prove mathematically how you are going to increase your damage by that factor, with two changes being one, a gear change, and two, a playstyle change, and understanding how Lightning Spear is dealing its damage. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing that we need to discuss is a playstyle change, and this goes into understanding how Lightning Spear actually deals its damage. So the first thing we're going to talk about is positioning. So if we take a look right here, this is a video I have of me having 100% crit. You'll be able to see it right here. Here is your 100% crit. And then I'm going to go ahead and cast my Lightning Spear being relatively distanced from the target. And I want you to watch the path by which the Lightning Spear takes. Go out, comes all the way back, goes forward, comes all the way back, goes forward, comes all the way back, goes forward, right? And this is essentially how Lightning Spear is functioning by being all the way back here. It has to go all the way there, come all the way back, go all the way there, go all the way back. All right. They have made a change that states that the Lightning Spear functions much better against close targets. What do they mean by that? Well, we're going to go ahead and pull up this video now, and you'll see that I am now close to the target, same setup, 100% crit, and I'm going to cast Lightning Spear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see how the Lightning Spear is literally just rotating on top of the target over and over and over and over again? This is going to average out about twice as many Lightning Spear hits against the target just simply by being closer to it. So now our playstyle is that when we're going against elites or going against bosses, we actually want to be right up next to them so that the Lightning Spears are just rotating on top of them. This is going to be our first multiplier for our damage increase. So we'll go ahead and go into our little Excel here. We have a factor of 2 because we're able to double the amount of Lightning Spear procs on it. So this is a 100% damage increase. Fantastic. Now let's go on to the second damage increase. So the second damage increase is going to be based on how Lightning Spear functions in density. So if we read the splintering aspect, it says specifically here that critical hits with Lightning Spear cause the spear to arc to the target and up to 5 other enemies. This is going to cap out at 6 enemies, all right? Essentially at 6 enemies, this is where this caps out, but it is a quadratic form of damage up to a factor of 6. In terms of how much damage that we're going to be dealing, I'm going to explain kind of how in this video. So we're going to go back to that original video, being the one that I was next to the target, and I want you to just count the damage instances. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so essentially what's happening here is that every single time the Lightning Spear goes to the target, it's dealing damage, right? Okay, now what I want you to do is watch this video. This is with density, and we're going to slow this video down quite a bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to count the amount of damage instances, or try to, I should say, on top of just this target right here. Just this guy. Not all of them, just this guy. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 22, 22. All right, so we got 22 instances of damage. How did that happen? Well, it has to do with basically how Lightning Spear is interacting with multiple targets and that arc functionality. So let's go into Paint and show what's going on there. So here we are in my Picasso style tracing. Sorry for the flashbang, but I want to kind of get the concept across, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to imagine that we just have one target, okay? And then we have Lightning Spear that comes up and deals its damage. So Lightning Spear comes up, deals its damage. It deals 100 damage, right? Then what it's going to do is it's going to circle around and come back and then hit the target again. That's 200 damage, right? And it's going to do this a couple times. So every time it circles, it's dealing this amount of damage, right? Every circle, every revolution, it's doing 100 damage. Okay, that's the thing that we want to pay attention to. All right, so now what I want you to do is imagine that there's actually another target right here and another target right here. Okay, so when the Lightning Spear comes up and hits this target, it's going to do 100 damage to this target, but then the damage is going to arc to here and to here, okay? Then what happens is the Lightning Spear then travels to this target. And when it hits this target, it is now going to cause the damage to arc from here and here. So this original target that we were talking about now takes another 100 damage. So we'll write that down. Then it comes across, it does its little circle revolution. It hits this target. And now what's going to happen is it's going to arc from here to here. And this one's going to receive another 100 damage. and then it comes back around and hits the original target again. But in this single revolution, we've gone from this original 100 damage to now when we add it all up, we are able to get a total of 300 damage. And so what happens is that when there's more density, every single time this lightning spear is doing a revolution, it is able to hit more targets and arcing all of that damage to all of those targets, which is causing the damage to quadratically scale with density. Now that's all good and dandy to understand for when we're going actually through the pit. That makes sense as to why we're just blowing everything up in density. But when we go against a boss, it's a single target that has much more HP and there's nothing to arc to. So how are we getting this increase in damage? Well, we actually have a new power in our boss powers called Lilith's Wind of Hate. And if you look at the modifier, it says that hitting an elite enemy with a main boss power creates an inert blister cone with 10% of their maximum HP. Killing the blister removes 4% of the elite's HP. So let's just talk about creating the blister. So what happens is we're going against the boss, we're going to hit them with the boss power. Now you cannot do this with UBERS, and the reason being is that this is the one that most people are running, and it makes sense because you need the cooldown reduction for this build to function. But once you are able to get the base cooldown reduction of the build to 40%, I have 44% right here. Once you get to 40%, you can actually flop the boss power to run Harbinger's Hatred of Volley here to get another 40% damage multiplier to your vulnerable, as well as now the boss power is going to consistently actually hit the target, which is going to apply these blister cones. These blister cones against the boss are going to form, and they are going to look something like these. You can see them like one right here, and there's one right here. So now what's happening is that when I cast my lightning spears, they're going up, hitting the boss, then they go and they hit this blister cone, then it comes down, hits this blister cone, then it comes back and hits this, in that circular rotation that we were talking about. And by having these two extra targets against the boss, we have now just instantly tripled the amount of damage we can do, because we are now causing 2 additional instances of the arcing damage happening. The last factor in our damage multipliers is the literal blisters themselves on Lilith's Wind of Hate boss power, which states that it creates this cone for 10% of their maximum HP, and after killing it, it removes 4% of the target's HP. So when you take out 10% of the HP, immediately 4% is going to be taken out. So for every 10%, you're getting 14% taken out. And you would say like, oh, that just means it's a 40% damage increase, right? Because 100% would be 10%, then 4% would be 40%, right? Not necessarily. That's not actually kind of how it's working. So let's explain kind of like what's happening mathematically here, right? So let's imagine the boss is at 100% HP. I take out 10%. This immediately puts the 4% on, which puts it at 86%. I take out another 10% to 76%, 4% down to 72%. And I keep running this equation down until the target is entirely dead. And I count how many times these blisters had to pop in order for that to happen. And when I do that, I get 7 instances of that happening. So really these cones are actually a 28% multiplicative damage increase. But in our scenario, because it's a boss, we actually get 2 of them. So that means for every 10% of the boss's HP that we take out, we're going to take out 8% of its HP, because there's 2 cones and the lightning spears are arcing the damage equivalently across all 3 targets, so everything's getting demolished at an equal rate. So we have 100%, we take out 10% to 90%, that blows up both the blister cones, which now makes it go to 82%, and we keep running this equation down until the target's dead, and we get 5 instances. And so what happens is that by having 2 of these blister cones out, we are increasing our damage by 40% multiplicatively. So now we can put in our factor here as a 1.4 multiplier, or a factor of 40% increase in our damage. So what is the actual total damage that we're able to get now? Well, that's just going to equal the product of everything that we have here, which is going to be an 8.4 multiplier, or as we run this up, this is a 940% damage multiplier, nearly 1,000%. That is how strong just changing our play style, creating more targets, and then how the functionality of the blisters is going off is really increasing our damage against a boss. Okay, yeah, so I'm actually that lazy where I didn't actually want to have to re-record. The thing is in order to make the blisters a form, we actually need to deal damage to the boss power, and UBERS is really bad for that because we only activate our ultimate, being our unstable currents, once every like blue moon. So with Harbingers, you're actually able to apply the damage much more consistently, which is going to create the blisters, but at the same time, you're also getting a 40% damage multiplier, which makes the actual multiplier 1,276%. Okay, bye. Which is going to allow us as Lightning Spear Sorcs to actually have a fighting chance against these single targets, and we can actually farm things ourselves rather than needing to hire a Necro or a Barb to carry us through these boss kills. We can actually do it ourselves, which is pretty nice, and it allows us to actually run some solo pit clears for our XP, which just really makes Lightning Sorcs really, really awesome at farming for Paragon. So for any of you Lightning Sorc enthusiasts out there, I hope that this helps with your boss damage. The boss damage or needing boss damage isn't going to really become a factor until you start getting up into like the tier 4. I'd say like pit 60 plus is where you're actually going to really start needing the boss damage, and this is going to become more relevant. And at that point, you should have the gear being the Rakanoth's Wake, the Godslayer Crown, and the Tal Rashas to actually give you the necessary cooldown reduction to be above what you need, which I'm going to state again is 40%. You need above 40% to do this. If you do not have 40% cooldown reduction, you cannot do this trick. You need to have at least 40%. I know I'm sounding redundant, but it's very important. I want to get that through. Once you have that 40% cooldown reduction, you can now go ahead and replace Cinerat's Flame with your Lilith's Wind of Hate, and you can replace your Uruvar's Bomb, which gives you the 15% cooldown reduction, with Harbinger of Hatred's Volley. This is going to give you that 40% damage multiplier on top of the 940% damage multiplier that we talked about that was happening with Lilith's Wind of Hate, which is going to give you an insane amount of damage against the boss, and you are going to be able to blow that sucker up into oblivion very easily, as you saw from the video. So that's all I have for you today. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your Season 8 as we improve the build and keep going. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Operator Otter